Mr. Lynch, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to get straight into it. How did you come to your faith in Christ?
Well, the short answer is Billy Graham. So the longer answer is I was raised Catholic. When I went off to college, didn't really have much to do with religion. Got married, and we can go into details about that, but I got married, and in 1989, Billy Graham came to Syracuse, New York, which is where we were living. And in the months preceding that, I was watching TV, and I saw him on TV. And I told my wife, who was a Christian, and praying for me, I said, I need to go see him. And she's like, okay, all right, we'll do it. So we went to the Carrier Dome in Syracuse and listened to Billy Graham, and it was like somebody grabbed me by the back of the neck, and when he said, come on down, and I went down, and that's where I accepted Christ.
So you were raised Catholic.
I was raised Catholic.
How old were you when you went to that Billy Graham event?
So I would have been 32.
What is the biggest difference that you, because a lot of times people will ask, what's the difference, right? You were raised Catholic, which could be considered Christian, but then you went to a Billy Graham event, and then I'm guessing there was an altar call, and he asked you to
there was. Yep.
Give your life to Christ.
We had to march down in front of probably 50,000 people.
Wow. So then, looking back and you growing up in the Catholic faith, what do you think was the big difference and what kind of shifted at that time?
Well, it was never personal for me. It was something you did. I went to Sunday school. I went to catechism class. I had First Communion, confirmation, and there's really no emphasis on a personal relationship with Christ, at least the way I was raised. I know some Catholics are very have a very personal relationship with Christ, but it wasn't until I went through college, and I certainly didn't live like a Christian in college. It wasn't terrible, but I just partied and really didn't think about Jesus at all. Certainly not the church. But then, for me, the biggest change was. I could feel a difference in my life. I could just feel the change that happened. My wife and I made a decision. We gave up alcohol, personal decision, but we gave it up at the time. And we had no children. We got married in 1985. And from that point on, we were very involved in our church. I was baptized in my church, Alliance Church back in New York. And it just, my life changed. I could just feel the difference, and it's hard to say all the things that changed, but there was a definite difference in my life.
So then, growing up as a Catholic, you're saying that that whole time you really didn't have any sort of like moment where things started to change, or I think this is so common, right?
Right.
They call them cradle Christians or cradle Catholics, which
right.
basically means that you were kind of born into it. And it's just the way things are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's such an importance of when your mind is ready for it, that you actually make that decision on your own without your parents.
Right. And I think for me, it was, I could feel the calling. It started months before the actual event. And I just felt like I need to be watching this on TV. And then I felt like I needed to go there. And that's not just me. That's the Holy Spirit calling you. So
how'd you hear about the event?
I don't remember if my wife at the time was involved with a youth group, and maybe they were going. But I remember watching him on TV and watching his crusades on TV in our house in New York.
Because your wife had it on.
I don't remember if she had it on or I had it on, but it was just like, I just have to watch this.
So how long were you guys dating before that happened?
So the long story about that is we met in high school. I was a senior, she was a sophomore, I guess. I was 18, she was 16. We went to my senior prom. That was our first date. And as she said, it took me probably 4 months to get up the courage to ask her to the senior prom. And then we moved from Western New York. We went to high school in Orchard Park, home of the Buffalo Bills. And I am still a fan.
Sorry. I'm kidding.
They won last night.
Yeah.
So we dated and then moved to Syracuse, and I was going to Syracuse University at the time, and so we dated for another year, and then as she said, I was stupid and decided to not be dating her anymore. It's my time in between Marty, and so then we went through college separately. She went to Geneseo, I went to Syracuse, then I'm down to Cornell, and then after college, I was making a trip to see my college roommates in Denver and California, and swung through Texas where she was. It's a long story, but I went through Texas and kind of reignited our romance, and she moved back to New York, and then in 1985 we were married. So married in 85, and it was 89 when I was saved.
So hold on a minute. So you went to Texas, you guys
In 82 probably, yeah.
rekindled the relationship, and then you got saved in what year?
89.
So that's you said 1980, Texas, sorry, 1980 what?
82.
82, 7 years.
Right. Yeah.
So she was with you for 7 years, probably praying, because you're a Catholic.
We got married in 85, and she was raised Episcopalian, so we were married in the Episcopalian church.
Okay, yeah.
So,
wow.
And her faith grew all that time, too.
Yeah, it's funny because I've heard so many men tell me I was saved because my wife made me.
Well,
and I'm guilty as charged. It's like they just help you grow up and really think about things that are important in life. Yeah, it's always fun to hear that. All right. So did you attend Cornell?
I did.
So you said you went to Syracuse.
I did. So when we moved, so out of high school, I wanted to go to Cornell. I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Oh, okay.
And but I didn't get in. They didn't take me. So they said, if you can maintain a B average and you apply as a transfer student, then we'll probably accept you. So I went to Syracuse and I studied there for 2 years. The first year I commuted. Second year I lived on campus. I was in a fraternity, and it was tough. It was tough to leave Syracuse because I was involved with the fraternity, and but I wanted to go to Cornell. I wanted to be a veterinarian. So then I transferred. And I actually transferred in the food science program, but then I changed to animal science and agronomy. So yeah, I spent the last 2 years at Cornell, lived on campus in a dorm. So I was a junior living in a dorm my first year.
That's fun.
I met a roommate of mine who, if I can share the story a little bit later, became a really good friend of mine. And then senior year, I lived off campus. So. But then I didn't, I could tell with my grades, I was a B student probably, that I wasn't going to get into vet school. They took 50 or 60 people, and I better have a backup plan. So I also added agriculture economics to my studies. And so after college, I didn't even apply to vet college. I decided I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go into business. So I took a job with a feed company. After about a month, my dad bought a small business. He had been working for a big corporation, went through a bunch of changes, left there, was a consultant for a year, and then bought a business. I said, I can always go work for a big company. I'm going to work for my dad. So my dad and I worked in a small engine and auto parts and outdoor power equipment company for 18 years. Together, yeah.
Wow, that's huge. I did not know that. So first question, why Cornell?
Well, for if you were in New York, you went to Cornell if you wanted to be in veterinary college, because that's where the veterinary college was.
Okay.
So
that makes sense. So that's kind of the cream of the crop for vet school.
It's the only vet college in New York. And so if you want to get into Cornell Vet College, if you go to Cornell, it gives you a little bit of an edge. So, and they had the right curriculum for a pre-vet. So,
but then you said, you know what, I don't want to.
After working on farms in the summer, I worked on dairy farms in the summer. I worked on beef cattle ranch, the research facility in the wintertime at school, and then I worked with veterinarians, I said, you know what? I'm not sure I want this.
It looks pretty messy, probably.
Well, when I worked on the farm, I worked 84 hours a week. That was in the summertime.
Goodness.
That was my standard week. I got every other weekend off. My boss was there when I got there in the morning. He was there when I left at night, and he didn't get every other weekend off. So why would I want to be a farmer? And I worked with the veterinarians. They were working almost as many hours, the big, large animal vets. And so I just decided that probably wasn't the career for me. So
almost 20 years you worked with your father. How was that experience?
It was interesting, for sure. My dad had a lot of experience in a big industry, big company. He was a Marine. He was in the Second World War, Guadalcanal. So he was, a tough old Marine. And so working with him was interesting. I learned a lot. We had our times when we didn't always see eye to eye. So that was in '79. I started working with him. That's when he bought the business. And then in 1994, he passed away. Didn't come to work one day, and my mom and sister were out of town. I went to the house, and he had passed away during the evening. But we had a good relationship at that time, so I don't really have a lot of regrets there. But then I had, at the same time, and so we talked about photography, and so you're probably into Photoshop and layers. So life is to me, is like layers. You just keep adding a layer, and
sure,
that changes what your perspective is. So my dad passed away, but we had gotten notice that we were a distributor, that our small engine companies were going to change their model, and they were going to eliminate 700 distributors across the country, and we were one of them. So I remember coming back after the funeral and getting a letter from the bank, and they said, we're sorry about your dad passing. We need to talk to you about finances. And I had the letter from our major supplier, Briggs & Stratton, saying they were going to be canceling us. And so then I had a choice to make. What do I want to do the rest of my life? And we really didn't have a whole lot of business at that point. It was going to be tapering off. So I made a plan to transition, and I wrote everything out I had to do, and then by 1997 I had a new job. But working with my dad until 1994 was a great experience. It would have been better if I'd had the large company experience first, and not getting all the education on your own dime. So I've always encouraged my son and anybody else to go out and work for somebody else first, then come back to the family business. And
why is that?
Well, most of the successful businesses that I got to work with when I had my second career with Blunt was a lot of them were second or third generations. And you could see the companies where the kids had gone out and gotten education and gotten experience working for somebody else and then came back, they were very successful. Other companies where, dad hung around and the son or daughter didn't really get a chance to run the business. The dad might have been 60 or 70 years old, and the kids really hadn't taken over any responsibility. And you could just see the difference. So where they went out and they came back and they had a plan to transition the business, they worked very successfully. So
maybe what about when the child goes out and gets some experience in the quote unquote real world, and they come back and now they see how the real world is. Right. And it's not. It's a little different when dad's not your boss and you can get away with some things. Right.
Yep. And that's what I found too. I think it would have been better if I would have gone out and worked for somebody else and then come back.
Yeah. But I mean, that's 18 years. That is very respectable because I worked with my father for a long time, and it's difficult, because on both sides you just get a little too personal, right? Too comfortable because it's your father or your son, and it's hard to have that line there.
And my mom worked in the business.
Wow.
And my wife worked there for a while, and my sister would come in. She was a teacher. She'd come in the summer and do some flyers and things for us.
So then you went to is it Blunt International?
Right. So after I sold everything off, I had a repair shop I had bought next door, and I sold that off, and the building, and then the business that we were in, the products and the product lines. So this kind of a neat story because I didn't really know what I was going to do. I looked at going back and get my MBA, And so, it wasn't a smooth financial transition. We didn't know if we were going to be able to sell it and come out a whole, or we're going to have to file bankruptcy. We talked to a bankruptcy attorney because there really wasn't much there. And we decided, no, we were going to do it right. And we were going to, if we had to live over the store in the apartment, then we would do that and pay off everything, my wife and I. We didn't have to, but that's, we were ready to do that. So in 1997, in the fall, my supplier, salesman, came in and he said, I told him I was going to be selling the business. I'd sold most of it and going to be leaving. He said, what are you going to do? And I said, Randy, I don't know. I might go back, get my MBA. I might go work for another company. I don't know. He goes, well, I just got offered a position in Europe. He said, my position is going to be open. So it was a regional manager, about 26 states in the Northeast, working for one of our suppliers, which was Frederick Manufacturing, part of Blunt. And he said, why don't you apply for my job? You'd be perfect for it. So I'm like, okay. So I did. I sent my resume in. The guy who was going to be my boss called me, and we talked on the phone. He said, come out to Kansas City. I want to talk to you. So I came out to Kansas City. We had dinner, had breakfast with the president the next morning. They showed me around, and then sat down about lunchtime, and he said, so, Jerry, do you want Bill or do you want to talk to the other guy? And Jerry said, no, I want Bill. And so Pat was the guy's name, looked at me and he said, you want the job? And I said, yeah.
What an interview process.
So in half a day, I had a job with, at the time was probably a $700 million a year company.
Oh my!
They just don't do things like that anymore, and I think it was just a God thing.
Oh yes, God's providential providence is just amazing. Especially, obviously, we see it after it's done, right? But just looking back, I can imagine you probably you've seen so many of those situations.
So it was an interesting day because I would get Saturdays off, which I worked Saturdays for 18 years. I got 2 weeks vacation. I got a car allowance. I mean, I came out way better than I was doing before. I told my wife I was so excited. I hung up the phone. I got a call. She said, well, you got a call today. And it was my college roommate who was in my wedding and a good friend of mine. And he had been diagnosed with cancer. He passed away that day. And so just reminded me of, we're not promised tomorrow. Right. And I had a chance to witness to him, and I did, but I didn't send him the book I wanted to send him. I had been down to see him in Boston, where he was in the hospital, and you just miss those opportunities to witness to people. And you always look back at it and you say, did I do enough? Did I do my part? But so it was a bittersweet day for me. But yeah, so I started my new career with Blunt in 1997, and actually 2 weeks later, I had to go do a presentation for a customer. I'd never had any training with the company. I got there, the guy who I was replacing said, I can't get there from the weather. You have to do this yourself. I said, well, Randy, what do I want me to do? So that's how I started off with the company, was just winging it. But I had been selling their products for 18 years, so I knew the products, and I could. It was a new customer, and I could explain what we had. So it worked out.
Thanks for sharing that story about your friend. I mean, that is such a powerful thing to think about. I mean, we all are presented as believers opportunities to share the truth and the gospel. And I think about this a lot with, I think sometimes we get wrapped up in our presentation style and did I say it right? I mean, when the time is there and you feel that tug, you just have to speak.
To say it. Yep.
I mean, you might stumble over it. You might, screw it up a little bit, but if you really just speak,
right,
the Holy Spirit, I think, will take over as it always does. So thanks for sharing that. Today, you are now a franchisee of Enrivo-Master. So I have to kind of lay this out. You wanted to be a veterinarian.
Right.
Then you went into business, worked for your father for 18 years, and went from being a business owner to an employee. How long were you an employee then after that?
18 years.
So it was 18.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right.
Then you said, you know what? I'm ready to do this business owner thing.
Well, not quite. So after my career with Blunt, at the time I was traveling internationally. I got a chance to travel a lot, which was fun for a while, and then it got pretty old.
Yeah.
But I had an opportunity. I was recruited for a small manufacturing company in the Midwest, and bigger role, smaller pond. It's the story. Mm-hmm. So, and it sounded attractive. Blunt was going through a bunch of changes, and I thought, this is an opportunity for me. I'm going to take it. So I did, and I worked there for 3.5 years. It's where my business partner, Lanny, and he and I had a lot of talks. We decided we wanted to do something together. We bought a piece of real estate in Wichita. My son was going to college there. He and his buddies lived there. So we were real estate investors in a $99,000 house. But it proved to us that we could get along and be business partners. So then we started looking for a business. So it was 2016 I left Blunt. In 2019 we started looking for a business.
Okay.
Well, 2019 we decided we found Enrivo-Master, and didn't know anything about it, but we looked into it and liked a bunch of things about it. The recurring business, the recurring revenue model, kind of a niche business, strong franchise support. And there was an existing franchise in the city that was for sale. Small, but existing. So we didn't have to start from scratch. So we decided to buy that and become business owners.
So you started out just investing in like a rental property, is that what you said?
Well, yeah, we started out, and that was probably in 2017 or 2018, we bought a small rental property. And my son lived there for 2 years with his friends.
Okay.
And they paid rent on it, and we sold it.
But the intention before that was, can we get along with each other?
Get along with each other, and do we want to do real estate? Do we want to flip houses? Do we want to get involved with, buying apartment buildings or whatever?
And I'm guessing the answer to that question was no?
It just really didn't work out.
Yeah.
He was down in Hutchinson, and I was in Kansas City, so it didn't work out. So when we bought the business, he had to move up to Kansas City.
Yeah, I think the whole rental property is a little different once you get into it than what people kind of paint the dream as. Right? Yeah. Flip a house and make all this money and, set it and forget it for renting. No, there's a lot of other things that go along with that.
Right. Yeah.
Getting a call at 1 a.m. because their toilet's clogged or something. Yeah. So then what about, so you said with the franchise, Enrivo-Master.
Right.
You like the support. Did you look into like the systems and processes that they have?
We looked into several different franchises. I did a couple of investigative, they call them career days or whatever. I forget what they call them exactly. But you go and you visit them. Discovery days.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I did a couple of those. I did a security company, and we looked at a couple other companies and really decided this is what we wanted to do. We talked to them, and then we took our wives down to Charlotte and visited with them for the day, for Discovery Day, the four of us. And they asked that your wives came with you, which I think is really important. Other companies didn't. So a couple things, because I know you're going to ask the question. It's important that not only the two guys or two girls or whatever the partners get along, but their spouses get along too. And because you really are joined at the hip in a small business. So we know their kids, they know our kids. My sons work for us, his daughters work for us. We go out to dinner with them. It's not a perfect relationship, but it's a good relationship. We respect each other, and I think so. That's really important. And I think the franchise was based on originally Pat Swisher's the one who started it, and it had a lot of Christian values to it. They wouldn't say they're a Christian company, but a lot of Christian values in the company. And so that attracted us too, just the way it was presented, and all the people we met. You could tell they were on your side. So, what does Enrivo-Master provide? What services do they provide? So we kill the germs that kill your business.
That's a good tagline. I like it.
We specialize in cleaning restrooms, kitchen floors, dining room floors. We wash outdoor patios. We can do some windows. We don't really do much in the way of windows. So really, the core of our business is two things: we scrub restrooms, and we do weekly service. We come in and we do a deep clean. We provide air fresheners, hand soap, paper products. We maintain your restroom for you, so you're not doing that heavy lifting yourself. Still need to come in at the end of the day, pick up the papers, flush the toilets if they need to be, all that kind of stuff. But you don't have to do the heavy cleaning. That's what we do. So it just takes that off the staff, generally for restaurants. But we do all kinds of places, gyms, small corporations. We do a place out at the stadium. We do all kinds of businesses.
So I'm guessing you do a lot of kitchens.
We do clean a lot of kitchens.
Oh my! I can't even imagine what that looks like with all the grease and
getting in a lot of the businesses. There's businesses that you really want to go, back and eat at, and there's places you really don't.
You need to start an Instagram where you're just taking photos of the most disgusting kitchens you've come across.
Right.
But keep it anonymous. But I think you would actually have a great following on that.
Yeah. And I think it is pretty true that the restroom follows the rest of the business.
Oh my goodness!
If they want to keep a clean restroom, then the rest of the business they pay attention to it as well.
Yes, and I'm gonna save that question for the next part of this episode.
Okay.
But so you went from, again, you want to be a vet, business, and now basically you cleaning toilets.
Right.
Yeah. I think. It's a fascinating story of that you are willing to get into whatever that you're called to do, right? Because I think a lot of times we're stuck, or we just maybe have this image or mind is set on, I'm only going to do this. I'm only going to do this. But we kind of have to be ready to do whatever we're called to do.
There's been a lot of careers changes, and I look back and I realize how many different careers I've had, how much time I've spent working. It's amazing. You look ahead and you think my career is going to be one or two jobs and I'll be done, but it doesn't work out that way.
we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We just have to deal with today.
Right.
So then, my last question with that franchise is, you could have easily looked at it, did Discovery Day, say, oh yeah, it looks like they got a good business model here. Why not create it yourself? Basically just going in and cleaning facilities, right?
Right. Well, and you know the answer to that. It's the systems. And if you buy a franchise, you're buying the systems. You're buying a proven system that works. You're buying a brand name. You're buying the support and the resources that you don't have to create. Everything that you do, you've got to create. As an independent business owner, right? You got to think about everything. There's a lot of things that we don't have to think about. We just have. We have a route planning software. It's all taken care of for us. We just have to use it. Purchasing is all done for us. We go on the website. We just reorder the supplies we need. They've negotiated all the pricing. They've got delivery companies. It's all set up for us. Marketing's all done for us. Our website's all done for us.
All the marketing?
All the marketing.
Wow.
All the
local marketing that is done for you?
Well, we don't have a lot of local marketing. It's more Google reviews, Google advertising, that kind of thing. So there's not a lot of like billboards or newspapers or radios.
But Google's going to be like, do they do your PPC, so your Google ads?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. They maintain a website for us. So all that is what you're paying for.
Yeah.
Plus, if I have a question, I call the guy in St. Louis, I call the lady up in Omaha, or I call the guy down in Tulsa and say, hey, what are you doing about this?
You have that collaboration with other franchisees.
There's 90 some other franchisees. Some of them have been in business for 15 years. Hey, what do you do with this? So.
Yeah, I definitely see the value. Years ago, I would always wonder, why would you not just do it yourself? You see how that business is being operated and the branding and what they're offering, but why don't you just do it yourself and save on the franchise fee or the royalty, basically, and then you get to keep all the money. But then I grew up in business and realized all of those extra things. It sounds like you're getting the better end of the deal here with all of the systems and all that stuff that comes along with it, where you just focus on just running the business.
Right. Right. That's the idea of it, is that we don't have a back office.
Sure.
My wife comes in, a couple of days a week, does invoicing, posting, miscellaneous stuff. Other than that, it's just Lanny and I, and then our team members.
Beautiful. Let's take a quick pause, and we will get back on part 2.
Sounds good.